Hello and welcome to COPPERHEAD Road Homestead. Glad you're here today. We're going to talk about inviting some wildness in today. If you're interested in something like that, then stay tuned. All right, there was a YouTube video that I watched, it's probably been a year or so ago. To be honest, I've watched it 2 or 3 times, but it really kind of inspired me. It was a food forest. It was a 23-year-old food forest. I'll put a link to it right up here. I really like about it that it invited this wildness in. So a lot of things have benefit, but we just don't know really what they are yet. In order to invite that wildness in, you also are trying to keep it a bit tame as well. So I'm over here right next to one of my pear trees. No, this is a red delicious apple. Over here on the ground beside the red delicious apple and behind me you can see 2 or 3 things. There's a couple oak trees down here, but I've got a bunch of oak trees around here. There is value in oak. Of course, you can make some flour out of the acorns, but these are quite young and it's crowding out some of the other things. So whenever it happens, I do cut a lot of those. But one of the beautiful things about this is that I can toss it over to the cows and the cows will eat this. There's also all sorts of honeysuckle over here. I don't worry too much about that. There are a lot of good things too that have just kind of came up. I don't really know a whole lot about this, but I can tell by the way it looks that it is in the sunflower family. So it looks very similar actually to the sunchoke, but this is over here and that's going to be a great pollinator, and sunflower is really great for the ground as well. It punches through the soil. If you haven't seen my video about planting some black oil sunflower seeds, it was one of my first ones. I'll put a link to it up here. I've got this over here. I got a bunch of honeysuckle. Here's another oak tree. Over here a bit in the distance, this looks like a little maple tree. Here's a maple tree. I've got a big maple across the road from the house, 2 or 3 or 4 of them, so I've got plenty of these. And in my cow pasture, there's several maples as well. So I cut a lot of those. I cut almost every one of these winged elm that I can find. Here's a winged elm. You can tell it's a winged elm from the wings that are on here, and it's actually got a bunch of honeysuckle vine on it as well. There's a bunch of honeysuckle on there. They've shot it in the background whenever I've mentioned about honeysuckle that it is good for making tea, so you can use it. It's so invasive that you're going to have plenty of it no matter what. Actually not quite sure what this is. It's a sumac or something maybe. Do you recognize what type of tree that is? I could look. It looks like it's got big leaves with leaflets. This is one leaf. Maybe it's ash. I don't know.
It's starting to rain.
Right here behind me, right in front of Maya, there are a bunch of blackberries. Do you see them? There's a bunch with blooms on them. I've seen some bees on them today. There's a bunch of new growth that doesn't have any flowers on them at all. It's right here in front of my Arkansas black apple tree. And over here I've got some blueberries, and I've got some comfrey. There's a lot of blackberries here. If you have any experience with blackberries, you know that they're very prolific. Since these things aren't hurting anything yet, I may end up cutting them back eventually, especially if they start infringing on my apple tree too much, or my apple tree gets a little bit bigger, and I might actually replace all of these with thornless. However, all my thornless ones, I'll take you over there here in just a minute. I've not seen any of my thornless ones bloom and blossom yet, so if I have these wild ones or I get a different variety of thornless ones, then I can have blackberries at different times. Letting this go right now. It's kind of wild. There's also some plantain over there. There's some sunflowers over here. I've got an elm tree. I'm probably gonna end up cutting this elm tree. I left this elm tree for now. I'm standing underneath an elm tree. I don't know if you can see the leaves very well. Do you see that? This is elm. And if you look a little closer at the branches, you can see that they've got little wings on them. It's a winged elm. But this is a nectarine tree that I put right underneath it because I had plans on cutting this elm tree over here in front of Chad's house. I just haven't done it yet. I've got plenty of elm, so and I don't know the use for it yet. Do you know? I don't know. Do you know of any use for elm? They're all over the place. I've got little elm seeds that fall around all over the place. So over here in front of Chad's house, I don't know how well you can see on the ground. It's covered with English ivy. I'm going to leave it for now because it's not hurting anything. But there are a bunch of little trees over here that I don't need because I'm saving the big trees over here. I'm not going to do anything with them. I'm not going to cut them. But the little stuff I want to eliminate so I can make room for other things over here. For example, over here there's a hickory tree. A little hickory tree over here, and it's sitting right underneath an oak tree and another hickory tree, and there's a cedar tree over here, and here's another elm. that's right here. These are things that I really, the hickory I can use the nuts from, the oak I can use the acorns from. You can make flour from them. I only need so many. I've got a forest full of hickory trees, so the pigs can eat some of them, but it's growing over here, so I need to thin this out a little bit to make room for other things. I'm not really sure what this one is, but it's not in a really good location, so I'm cutting it. So the same thing over here. You can see all of this green back here in part of my food forest. And right over here next to this post is a pecan tree. I'm not sure what variety it is. I bought 4 other varieties and 3 of them have died. I'm not very good with pecan trees apparently. You see a bunch of these trees over here. And I'm just gonna leave them from now because, again, they're not hurting anything. Let me show you over here a couple more things. This right over here by this post is a nectarine. That's a North Star cherry. I think this is a golden and delicious apple. Over here next to this post is a pawpaw. I just planted it last year, so hopefully it'll do really well, but it's an understory tree and it grows from rhizomes, so you have a pawpaw patch. I'm hoping that does well. One of the things that I like to do to manage the food forest, the things that I don't need, here's some lettuce. I just stomp it down. Take a look. So I just take it and I stomp it down, stuff that I don't need. I think this is horseweed. This is horseweed. I'm not really too sure much about it, but it grows in abundance over here. So I stomp a lot of it down. Over here is some curly dock. I've been feeding that to the rabbits. I've got a lot of food for the rabbits there. You see the blackberries over here? Look how they're all flowering. You see how they're all flowering there? Look at the blackberries. This is part of my food forest. Look how wild and green it is. So managing my food forest, one of the things that I really like to do that was inspired by that video, I'll put a link to it down below, that 23-year-old food forest, is just stomp things that I don't need. Look, watch. And a lot of things I just pull up too. Like this horseweed, I think it's horseweed. Tell me if you know what it is, if it's not horseweed, if it has any use that I'm not aware of. These over here are thornless blackberries. And look, you don't see any of them flowering. Versus this one right over here is thorny. It's alongside my thornless. And it's flowering like crazy. It looks like these are starting to put out flowers. This is one of the thornless ones. This might be my first year for a lot of blackberries over here, but I've been propagating them like crazy. I did a video about propagating them before. If you haven't seen that video, then I'll put a link to it right up here. Here's another one of these winged elms. I've gotten rid of this several times. If you look at the way it's growing, so I've knocked it down and it was coming out of the ground like this and then comes up like this, you see? These things are like weeds around here. I can't get rid of them. So what I do a lot of times in my food forest managing it is I just go around, I stomp things that I don't want. But if I do just a little bit every now and then it's a whole lot easier to manage. And I'll take my clippers and I'll clip the little things. And if it's a little bit bigger, then I'll take my hatchet or my machete axe. If you have space for it, and even if you don't have a small space, I encourage you to grow your own food forest. Find you a few fruit trees. I'm gonna get some peaches for the first time this year. This is only like a year and a half old. It's just gonna grow more and more and more, and it's gonna give back to the soil, and as long as I just manage it a little bit. I encourage you to grow one. If you like things like this, then like and subscribe, hit that bell and click all so you never miss a notification. And we have a live stream every Sunday night at 8 p.m. if you're interested in that as well. Thanks.